Tom was an ordinary young man who never thought his life would go beyond his small town on Earth. He liked simple things: walking near the river, fixing small machines, and reading about the stars. He was not rich, not famous, and not even very brave. People often said he was too quiet and too thoughtful. But Tom believed that even small lives had meaning. One evening, as Tom was repairing an old radio in his workshop, he heard a knock at the door. Outside stood two officials dressed in dark suits. They carried the mark of the United Earth Council, the organization that spoke for all humans when dealing with other planets. Tom felt his hands grow cold. Why would the council send people to his small home? "Tom," one of them said, "we have come with an offer. It is unusual, but important." Tom slowly nodded, unsure what to say. He invited them inside, and they explained something that sounded almost like a story from a book. Far beyond Earth was a planet called Luria. Its people, the Lurians, had been in contact with humans for only a short time. Peace was fragile, and trust between the two worlds was still uncertain. To strengthen this bond, the leaders of both sides had agreed to something rare: a marriage between a human and a Lurian royal. Tom almost laughed when he heard it. "Surely, you don't mean me," he said, his voice uneasy. "I am just, well, I am no one special." But the officials looked serious. "The Princess of Luria has agreed to this union. The council has chosen you, Tom, not for power or wealth, but for your honesty. Reports about you describe a man who treats others kindly and speaks with truth. That is exactly what this marriage needs." Tom was speechless. Him marry an alien princess? It sounded impossible. Yet the men continued, telling him that if he agreed, he would travel across the stars and become part of a history greater than anything Earth had seen before. If he refused, the chance might be lost, and trust with the Lurians could weaken. That night, Tom sat by the window of his small house. The stars shone brightly, as if waiting for his decision. He thought about his quiet life. He had no family close by, no strong ties holding him down. Was this his chance to do something meaningful, not just for himself, but for humanity? The next morning, Tom gave his answer. "I will go," he said quietly, though his heart raced with both fear and wonder. The journey began quickly. Within days, Tom was brought to a launch station where a Lurian starship waited. Sleek and shining, it was unlike anything he had ever imagined. As he stepped inside, he felt both small and excited. The ship's corridors glowed with soft light, and the air carried a faint scent like fresh rain. The Lurian guides spoke little, but they treated him with respect. They explained that Princess Myra awaited him on Luria, where the wedding ceremony would take place. Tom asked questions, but most answers were gentle and vague, leaving him more curious than before. During the long travel, Tom stared often at the viewing window, watching stars rush past like silver lines. He wondered about the princess. What would she look like? Would she even want this marriage, or was she as uncertain as he was? The thought made his chest tighten. He was not afraid of her being different, he was afraid of being unworthy. After several days, the ship finally approached Luria. Tom leaned forward, eyes wide as the planet filled the window. It was more beautiful than he could ever describe. The skies shimmered in shades of silver and pale blue. Vast oceans sparkled like crystal, and towers of light rose from the land below. It looked like a dream painted across the heavens. As the ship descended, Tom felt the weight of his decision more strongly than ever. This was no simple journey. This was the start of a life he had never imagined. When the ship landed, he was welcomed by Lurian officials dressed in flowing robes. They bowed politely but studied him closely, as if trying to understand what made this quiet human so important. One of them spoke softly, "You will meet Princess Myra soon. She is prepared for the union, though she has lived her life very differently from yours. Do not be afraid." Tom nodded, though fear still rested in his heart. He was just Tom, the quiet man from a small town. Yet now, he stood on an alien world, chosen to marry a princess for the sake of peace between two civilizations. He did not know what awaited him, but he knew there was no turning back. And deep inside, as he looked at the shining city before him, Tom whispered to himself, "Maybe this is what I was meant for." Tom had never imagined leaving Earth, but now here he was, standing on the shining soil of an alien world. His heart raced as he looked around at the tall towers that sparkled like polished crystal. The air was fresh, carrying a cool sweetness that reminded him of spring mornings back home. Everything seemed new and strange, yet beautiful. The Lurian officials who greeted him moved with quiet grace. Their long robes shimmered faintly in the silver light, and their eyes glowed softly, as if lit from within. Though they were polite, Tom noticed that their faces rarely changed expression. They smiled politely, but it felt more like a practiced gesture than a true emotion. Still, he bowed respectfully, trying not to appear nervous. "You are welcome, Tom of Earth," one of them said. "We will take you to the palace where Princess Myra waits. Until the wedding, you will be our guest." Tom nodded, thankful for their kindness, though his hands trembled slightly. He followed them to a sleek, floating carriage that glided smoothly above the ground. As it moved through the city, Tom gazed at everything with wide eyes. The streets were lined with tall, glowing plants that swayed gently, even though there was no wind. The buildings shone like glass, their shapes tall and curved, reaching up like giant flowers of light. He noticed that the Lurians walked calmly, their movements slow and almost perfect. No one rushed, no one shouted, and no one laughed loudly. It felt peaceful, but also strange, too quiet, as if something important was missing. At last, the carriage stopped before the grand palace. The structure rose like a mountain of shining stone, its surface smooth and bright, with countless arches that seemed to touch the sky. Wide steps led to a hall lined with tall pillars that glowed with a soft silver fire. Tom felt very small as he walked inside. The hall was filled with Lurians, their robes flowing, their eyes fixed on him. He felt their gaze carefully measuring him, perhaps wondering how an ordinary human had been chosen for such an important role. Tom straightened his back and reminded himself why he had agreed to this peace between two worlds, and maybe something more. At the end of the hall, a tall figure waited. Her robe shimmered in pale blue, her silver hair falling softly around her shoulders. Though Tom had never seen her before, he knew this must be Princess Myra. She stood calmly, her face serene, but her eyes carried a distant sadness that Tom could not understand. "Tom of Earth," a voice announced. "This is Princess Myra, daughter of the High Council of Luria." Tom bowed deeply, feeling his heart thump loudly. Myra inclined her head in return, her movements smooth and graceful. Yet when Tom's eyes met hers, he was surprised. Her gaze did not show anger or dislike, but it also did not show warmth. It was steady, polite, and unreadable. "It is an honor to meet you, Princess," Tom said softly, his voice almost shaking. "The honor is shared," she replied, her words calm but without clear feeling. Tom expected her to smile, but she did not. Instead, she looked at him for a moment longer, then turned slightly toward the officials beside her. "Please see that he is made comfortable," she said, before walking away with quiet steps. Tom stood frozen, unsure what to think. She was beautiful more than he had imagined, but there was something distant about her, something that made her seem untouchable. He felt a strange mix of awe and worry. Was she truly willing to marry him, or was she only doing this because duty demanded it? The officials led Tom to a guest chamber in the palace. The room was large and elegant, with walls that shone like pearl and a soft bed that seemed to glow faintly. A wide window opened to a view of the city below, where towers glittered in the evening light. Tom sat on the edge of the bed, trying to take in everything that had happened. He thought of Myra's eyes so calm, yet carrying that hidden sadness. It made him wonder if she was as uncertain about this marriage as he was. Perhaps she, too, felt trapped by duty. That thought gave Tom both comfort and worry. Comfort, because maybe they shared the same feelings. Worry, because how could two strangers, from two different worlds, find a true bond if their hearts were uncertain? That night, he barely slept. The palace was silent, and the quiet pressed heavily around him. He missed the sound of crickets from his small town, the laughter of neighbors, the simple warmth of earth. Yet, as he looked out at the glowing towers of Luria, he whispered to himself, "I chose this path. I will not turn back now." The next day, Tom was guided through the palace gardens. They were filled with strange plants that shimmered in colors he had never seen on Earth. Some leaves seemed to hold light inside them, while others moved slowly as if they breathed. Fountains poured crystal water into clear pools, and silver birds with long wings flew gracefully above. Tom walked slowly, amazed by the beauty, but he noticed something again: the silence. The Lurians who walked in the garden moved gently, spoke little, and showed no signs of joy or surprise. It felt like a world without laughter. For the first time, Tom realized how different their lives must be. As he stood among the shining flowers, he wondered if Myra also felt this silence within her heart. Was that why her eyes looked so sad? And deep inside, Tom felt a quiet hope: maybe, somehow, he could bring a little of Earth's warmth into this world. The day of the wedding arrived sooner than Tom expected. From the moment he opened his eyes that morning, the palace was filled with a quiet energy. Servants moved gracefully through the halls, preparing decorations of glowing flowers and silver banners. The air itself seemed brighter, as if the sky knew something important was about to happen. Tom stood by the window of his chamber, staring out at the city of Luria. Towers gleamed under the soft light of two moons, and wide streets shone with streams of gentle energy that looked like rivers of light. It was beautiful, but Tom's heart was heavy with nervousness. He kept reminding himself, "This is not just about me. This is for peace between our worlds." Yet he could not stop his own doubts. Would Myra ever accept him as more than a symbol? Would he be able to live among people so different from his own? Later that morning, Lurian attendants entered his room. They brought him ceremonial robes made from fine white fabric that shimmered softly. As they helped him dress, Tom felt like a child again, unsure of every movement. The robe was light but elegant, with silver lines that ran across it like flowing rivers. When they finished, one of the attendants spoke in a calm tone. "You are ready, Tom of Earth. Today, two worlds will become one through you and the princess." Tom gave a small nod, though his stomach tightened with nerves. He followed them through tall halls until they reached the grand ceremonial chamber. The chamber was enormous, larger than any building Tom had ever entered. Pillars of crystal rose high, holding a ceiling that glowed like a soft sky. Music filled the air, strange, harmonic sounds that felt alive, like voices from another world. Hundreds of Lurians filled the seats, all dressed in robes of silver and blue. Their eyes followed Tom as he entered, and he felt the weight of their gaze pressing against him. At the far end of the chamber, Princess Myra stood waiting. She wore a gown of pale silver that glowed faintly, as though woven from moonlight. A delicate crown rested on her head, shaped like leaves of crystal. She looked graceful, almost unreal, yet her expression remained calm and unreadable. Tom walked slowly down the long path toward her. Every step echoed in the chamber, and he tried to keep his breathing steady. He could feel his hands trembling slightly, so he held them together to hide it. When he reached Myra, she bowed her head politely. Tom returned the gesture. For a moment, their eyes met. Once again, Tom saw the same sadness hidden behind her calm face, but it passed quickly as she turned toward the High Council members who stood nearby. The ceremony began. An elder Lurian, robed in deep blue, raised his hands and spoke in a clear voice that filled the hall. He spoke about unity, trust, and the joining of two different worlds. His words carried power, though his tone remained steady and without emotion. Tom listened carefully, feeling both honored and small at the same time. He thought of the people back on Earth who would be watching through broadcasts. He hoped they would see that he was trying his best, even though he felt unsure inside. When the elder finished speaking, he motioned for Tom and Myra to step forward. Together, they placed their hands on a glowing crystal pedestal. The crystal lit up softly, sending waves of silver light across the hall. The elder spoke again, declaring them husband and wife by the bond of the crystal. The hall filled with soft music once more. The audience rose to their feet in silent respect. Tom expected applause or cheering, but the Lurians only bowed their heads gently. It was their way of showing honor. Myra turned slightly to face him. "It is done," she said quietly, her voice calm. "Yes," Tom replied, trying to smile. "It is an honor." She gave a faint nod but did not smile back. Her eyes seemed distant, as though she was thinking of something far away. After the ceremony, the couple walked together down the hall. Tom noticed how many eyes were fixed on him, some curious, some cautious. He wondered what the Lurians truly thought of him. Did they see him as a worthy partner for their princess, or just as a strange outsider? The reception took place in a vast garden behind the palace. Tables of shining stone were filled with delicate foods that glowed faintly, fruits shaped like stars, and drinks that shimmered like liquid light. Music played gently from unseen instruments, and the garden itself glowed with flowers that opened as the evening approached. Tom sat beside Myra at the main table. He tried to start conversation, speaking about the beauty of the garden. Myra listened politely, but her answers were short and careful. She was not unkind, but she seemed unsure how to speak with him. At one point, Tom asked, "Are you happy about this?" Myra turned her gaze toward the glowing flowers. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then softly, she replied, "I am prepared." Tom did not know how to respond. He wanted to ask more, but something in her tone told him not to press further. He simply nodded and stayed quiet. As the evening ended, the Lurians bowed respectfully and left the garden one by one. Tom and Myra were guided back into the palace. The halls grew quiet as the last of the guests departed. For the first time that day, Tom realized he and Myra were about to be left alone. The thought filled him with nervousness. The wedding had joined them in name, but in truth, they were still strangers. And now, in the silence of the palace night, they would have to face each other not as symbols, but as two individuals. Tom's heart pounded as they stepped into their private chamber. The door closed softly behind them, leaving only the two of them in the quiet glow of silver light. And though he did not know what would happen next, Tom understood one thing: this was the true beginning of their story. The chamber given to Tom and Myra was quiet, filled with a soft silver glow from the walls. The air was cool and gentle, carrying the faint scent of flowers from the palace gardens. A wide window looked out over the shining city, where towers glimmered under the light of two moons. It was a beautiful place, but Tom could not stop the nervous beating of his heart. He stood near the window for a moment, unsure of what to say. Myra walked calmly to a chair and sat down, her silver gown flowing like water around her. She was graceful as always, but her calm face made it hard for Tom to understand what she was feeling. The silence stretched between them. Tom wanted to speak, but his words felt stuck. Finally, he took a deep breath and said softly, "Princess, I know this must be strange for you. It is strange for me too. But I want to be honest with you. I don't know much about your world, but I want to learn. And I hope we can at least be friends." Myra lifted her eyes to him. For the first time, her calm mask seemed to break slightly. She studied him, not with coldness, but with a quiet curiosity. You speak with truth, she said. That is why you were chosen, I think. Tom nodded, though he still felt uncertain. He sat across from her, folding his hands together to keep them from shaking. After a long pause, Myra spoke again, her voice softer this time. There is something you must know, Tom of Earth. Something my people have hidden for many generations. Her words made him sit straighter. She looked at her hands as she spoke, her voice steady but tinged with something new, something almost fragile. My people, the Lurians, are born without true feelings. We learn to copy emotions, but we do not truly feel them as humans do. Our smiles are taught, our laughter is practiced, our sadness is remembered from stories. But inside, we remain calm. Always calm. Tom blinked, unsure at first if he had heard her correctly. You mean, you don't feel? At all. She shook her head gently. Not as you do. We know when we must be kind or polite. We know when to act joyful or proud. But it is only an act of the mind. Our hearts remain still. Her silver eyes looked at him then, steady and searching. This marriage was not only for peace, Tom. It was also my choice. I wished to see if being close to a human could help me understand what it means to feel. What it means to have a heart. Tom sat in silence, stunned by her words. All the things he had noticed about the Lurians, their quietness, their stillness, their lack of laughter, suddenly made sense. They were a people without true emotions. He thought about Myra's sadness. Perhaps it was not sadness at all, but the absence of anything to fill her heart. At last, he spoke carefully. I see. That is why your eyes looked far away. You wanted something more. Myra lowered her gaze. I wanted to understand. I have read about human joy, about human tears, about the warmth of family and the fire of love. Words describe them, but I do not know them. I do not know what it means to smile because your heart wishes it, not because you are told to. Her voice trembled slightly on the last word. Tom noticed it so small, but different from the perfect calm she always held. He leaned forward gently. Maybe that is why I am here. Maybe not just for peace between our worlds, but to share with you the small things that make us human. Myra looked at him again, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light. Can such things be shared? She asked. Tom smiled faintly. I think so. Emotions are not lessons in a book. They are moments. A laugh, a memory, a kind word. If we share them together, maybe you will begin to feel them too. For the first time, Myra's calm expression shifted. It was not a full smile, but her eyes softened, and her lips curved ever so slightly. It was small, unsure, but it was real, different from the perfect practiced smiles she gave in public. Tom felt warmth in his chest at that moment. It was as if the great distance between them had become a little smaller. The night grew quiet again, but the silence was no longer heavy. Myra seemed thoughtful, her gaze no longer distant but searching, as though she was seeing Tom in a new light. At last, she said softly, when I placed my hand on yours during the ceremony, I felt something I could not explain. It was warmth. Not only on my skin, but somewhere deeper. It was small, but it was real. It frightened me, yet it also gave me hope. That is why I wished to speak tonight. Tom's eyes widened slightly. You felt something? Yes, she whispered. And if that was truly feeling, then perhaps my heart is not empty after all. Tom's nervousness melted into gentle certainty. He leaned back and said warmly, then we will begin there, Princess. With that small warmth. It may grow, if we let it. Myra looked at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, her practiced mask fell away completely. Her eyes glowed softly with something fragile and new, a spark of hope. And as the two moons shone through the window, Tom understood the truth. This marriage was not only the joining of two worlds. It was the start of a journey into the deepest mystery of all, the awakening of a heart. Days after the wedding felt different for Tom. The palace was still quiet, the Lurians still calm and graceful, but something had changed. Princess Myra no longer looked at him with only formality. There was a new searching light in her eyes, as if she was waiting for him to show her more of what it meant to be human. Tom took this task seriously. He remembered her words that night, the confession that she had never truly felt emotions. It touched him deeply. He thought about all the simple moments that gave humans joy, the warmth of a smile, the comfort of laughter, the peace of sitting under the stars. Perhaps these were things Myra had never truly known. One morning, Tom asked Myra to walk with him in the palace gardens. She agreed, though her face was calm as always. The gardens glowed softly in the morning light. Strange flowers swayed like living lanterns, and silver-winged birds drifted through the air. Tom pointed to one of the birds, its feathers catching the light like rainbows. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. Myra followed his gaze. "Yes, it is, beautiful," she repeated. But her tone was thoughtful, not certain. Tom smiled gently. "When I look at it, I feel amazed. Something so small, yet so full of wonder. That feeling inside is what humans call joy." Myra tilted her head slightly. "Joy," she repeated, as though trying to taste the word. She looked at the bird again, watching its slow graceful flight. For the first time, her lips curved faintly, not in a practiced way, but in a curious one. Another day, Tom shared a story from Earth. They sat by the window of her chamber, looking out at the glowing city, while Tom spoke about his childhood. He told her how he once built a small kite out of paper and wood, how he ran across the fields with it, laughing as the wind carried it high into the sky. As he spoke, Myra listened carefully, her silver eyes fixed on him. "You laughed, because of the kite?" she asked softly. "Yes," Tom said with a smile. "It wasn't just the kite. It was the feeling of freedom, the wind, the sky. It was simple, but it made my heart light." Myra sat quietly for a moment, then whispered, "I have never laughed like that." Tom's smile softened. "Perhaps one day, you will." Her gaze lingered on him, and for the first time, there was a tiny flicker of longing in her expression. In the evenings, Tom would sometimes hum small earth melodies. He did not have a perfect voice, but the tunes were warm and gentle. One evening, while Myra sat reading, she stopped and listened as Tom hummed by the window. "What is that?" she asked. "A song," Tom replied. "Something humans sing to share feelings. This one reminds me of home." Myra closed her book and moved closer, sitting quietly as he hummed. When he finished, she spoke softly. "It makes my chest feel strange. Not heavy, not painful, but different. Is that what music does?" Tom nodded. "Yes. It touches the heart. That is another gift of being human. We don't just hear sounds, we feel them." Myra placed her hand gently on her chest, as though testing the feeling. Her eyes shone faintly, and she whispered, "Then maybe I am beginning to understand." Word of these changes began to spread through the palace. Servants noticed that the princess now paused to look at small things: a flower opening, the sound of water in the fountains, the gentle glow of the moons. She had never done this before. She had always walked with calm purpose, her face unreadable. But now, there were moments when she seemed alive. The elders of the court watched quietly, their expressions still and cautious. Some whispered among themselves, unsure if this change was good or dangerous. But the younger Lurians looked on with curiosity. They saw their princess almost smile, they heard her voice carry a softer tone, and they wondered if emotions could truly be awakened. One evening, as they sat together, Myra turned to Tom with an unusual brightness in her eyes. "Tom," she said slowly, when you speak, when you share your memories, I feel something inside me change. I do not understand it fully, but it feels warm. Not empty. Different from what I have known all my life. Tom's heart lifted at her words. That warmth is the heart awakening, he said softly. It means you are beginning to feel, Myra. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. I thought I would live all my life without ever knowing this. Now, I wonder, if there is more to find. There is much more, Tom replied. Happiness, kindness, even sadness, they are all part of what makes us human. And if you wish, I will share them all with you. For the first time, Myra smiled, small and unsure, but real. Her voice carried a quiet strength as she answered, then I wish to learn. That night, Tom lay awake thinking of all that had happened. He had come here believing he was only a symbol of peace, a stranger in a strange world. But now, he realized he had given something far greater, the first spark of emotion to a princess who had lived her life without it. It was not wealth or power he offered. It was something invisible but priceless, the gift of the human heart. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Tom felt certain of one thing: Myra was changing, and her change would not only touch her own life, but perhaps the whole world of Luria. Days passed on Luria, and something remarkable was happening. Princess Myra, once calm and distant, began showing signs of curiosity and emotion. Her eyes, which had always reflected only calm thought, now carried a flicker of something new: interest, wonder, even joy. Tom watched this quietly, both amazed and proud. He had not imagined that his simple acts, telling stories, sharing songs, pointing out beauty in small things, could awaken something so deep in another being. He realized that the human heart had power beyond words or technology. One morning, Tom and Myra walked in the palace gardens again. The glowing plants seemed brighter, almost as if they sensed a new energy in the princess. Birds with silver wings fluttered over their heads, and soft fountains trickled nearby. Tom, Myra said, her voice soft but carrying a spark, yesterday I watched the children of the palace learning to play. I could not help but feel. I think humans call it happiness. Tom smiled. Yes. It is a feeling that grows when we share moments with others. Happiness is simple, yet powerful. Myra looked at him, tilting her head slightly. It is strange. I have lived all my life without it, and now, it feels as if I have always been missing something. The changes in Myra did not go unnoticed. Lurian servants and advisors began to whisper among themselves. The elders of the palace were cautious. The princess is different, one said. She listens more, watches more, she even smiles at small things. Is this proper for a royal? But the younger Lurians were curious and excited. They began to watch their princess as she shared moments with Tom, laughing softly at a bird's flight, admiring the patterns of the glowing flowers, listening to the human tell stories of Earth. Tom noticed the change in the princess, but he also realized something even greater: others were beginning to notice her change. And in a quiet way, the palace itself seemed to respond. Guards walked more gently, servants worked with quieter care, and even the architecture, tall and glowing, felt more alive under her gaze. One evening, Tom and Myra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons bathed the towers in silver light, and a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of glowing flowers. Tom, Myra said, I think I am beginning to understand the power of the human heart. It is not only warmth or kindness. It is also courage, hope, and the desire to connect with others. Your presence has awakened something in me I did not know could exist. Tom took her hand gently. Then you see it for yourself. That is what humans give to the world, not just words or rules, but the heart. Myra's eyes shone with quiet wonder. And I want to share it with my people. I want them to understand that emotions are not weakness, but strength. That life can be more than order and calmness. Tom squeezed her hand gently. Then you will lead them, princess. You will show them how to feel. News of Myra's change spread slowly but surely. Lurians who once only performed their daily duties without thought now began noticing small joys. A young student laughed aloud at a bird chasing the wind. A gardener paused to admire the shape of a flower. Even the palace musicians played with soft emotion rather than perfect repetition. Myra noticed these things and felt warmth in her chest. She realized that emotions were contagious. When one heart opened, it could touch many others. Tom, she whispered one evening, your stories, your laughter, your songs, they are like seeds. Each one grows into something alive in others. You have given me the gift of feeling, and now I see it spreading through my world. Tom smiled softly. It begins with small acts. Humans call it kindness, curiosity, and sharing. It is simple, but it changes everything. Over the next few weeks, Myra continued to learn from Tom. They walked through gardens, shared meals in the palace, and watched the glowing city together. She laughed softly when he told silly stories, and she even asked questions about Earth that made him smile. For the first time, she realized that emotions were not just private. They could be shared, multiplied, and used to connect with others. Myra began teaching other Lurians in small ways, showing them how to notice beauty, how to pause and appreciate a moment, and how to allow small feelings to grow. The elders were cautious at first, but gradually even they began to notice that the palace was calmer, warmer, and more alive. The world of Luria, long ordered and precise, was beginning to change because a human had shared something priceless, a gift not of technology or knowledge, but of the heart. One evening, Myra stood on the balcony with Tom once again. The moons reflected in her eyes, soft light dancing on her silver hair. Tom, she said, I understand now. Being human is not about strength or skill alone. It is about the heart, the courage to feel, the courage to care, and the courage to share that care with others. Tom looked at her, his heart full. Yes, Myra. And you have the heart to lead your people. You can show them the beauty of life, the power of feeling, and the joy of connection. Myra smiled fully this time, not the small, uncertain smile from before, but one filled with warmth. Then we will do it together, she said softly. I will lead them, and you will guide me. And as the two moons shone above the city, Tom realized something incredible. An ordinary human had begun a change that might touch an entire world. The days on Luria grew brighter for Tom and Myra. The palace, once quiet and orderly, now felt alive with soft energy. Lurians began noticing small joys, children laughing, servants pausing to admire flowers, and even elders offering gentle smiles. Myra's transformation had sparked a ripple across her world, and Tom could not help but feel both proud and amazed. Yet, the greatest surprise was yet to come. One evening, after a long day of exploring the palace gardens and sharing stories, Myra invited Tom to a hidden part of the palace, a section he had never seen before. The corridor was narrow and quiet, lined with ancient crystal carvings that glowed faintly. Myra's steps were calm but purposeful as she led him to a small chamber at the end. This room has been closed for many generations, she explained softly. Even the High Council does not enter here often. I wanted to show you something I discovered recently. Tom followed, curiosity rising in his chest. The door opened into a circular chamber. At its center was a pedestal holding a smooth, glowing crystal. Light flowed through it like liquid silver, pulsing gently as if it had a heartbeat of its own. What is it? Tom asked, stepping closer. Myra looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the crystal's glow. This is the heart of Luria. It has been in our palace for centuries, but only recently did I learn its secret. It is said to hold the essence of our people, their emotions, thoughts, and memories. But I believe it has always waited for someone who can feel with a human heart. Tom blinked, unsure if he had understood. "Wait, you mean it is waiting for me?" Myra nodded gently. "Perhaps." When you arrived, the crystal began to pulse more brightly. When I began to feel, even a little, its light grew warmer. It seems, it recognizes the human heart. Tom reached out carefully. The moment his hand touched the crystal, a wave of warmth spread through him. He could feel it vibrating softly, like a living heartbeat. Images flashed in his mind, memories of Luria's past, laughter that had never been heard, tears that had never fallen, and joy that had never been shared. He looked at Myra, stunned. It feels alive. I can feel the history, the lives of your people, all of it." Myra stepped closer, placing her hand beside his. "And now we understand the truth. The Lurians' hearts were not empty, they were waiting. Waiting for someone to awaken them, to bring the warmth of true feeling. That is why your arrival changed everything." Tom felt a mixture of awe and humility. He had never imagined that his ordinary life on Earth could have such an impact. He looked at Myra, and for the first time, he understood the depth of her journey. She had lived her life without true emotions, yet she had grown willing to learn, to feel, and to share. I never thought I could do something like this," Tom said softly. Myra smiled, a full and real smile this time. "It was not just you, Tom. It was both of us. Your presence, your stories, your kindness, they awakened me. And together, we can awaken my people." The crystal pulsed more brightly as if agreeing with her words. Light flowed outward, touching the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. Tom could feel it spreading through the chamber, gentle yet powerful. The heart of Luria seemed alive in a way it had never been before. Over the next few days, Myra and Tom used the heart of Luria to teach her people about feeling. Lurians gathered near the crystal, and under its soft glow, they began to sense what Myra and Tom had discovered. Some laughed freely, some cried softly, and some simply smiled with understanding. The city outside the palace mirrored this change. The streets glowed brighter, the garden seemed more alive, and even the air felt lighter. Tom realized the truth of what Myra had said: emotions were not just personal, they were contagious, able to transform a world when shared. One evening, Myra turned to him, her silver eyes shining with quiet joy. "Tom, you have given me a gift greater than I could imagine. Not just the gift of feeling, but the gift of understanding life in its fullness. And now, we can give it to others." Tom smiled. "It is because of you too, Myra. You were brave enough to open your heart. That is what made everything possible." They stood together before the glowing crystal, hands touching lightly. Outside, the city of Luria shimmered with new energy. Inside, the palace was alive with whispers of excitement, soft laughter, and the warmth of shared feeling. For the first time in centuries, the Lurians truly experienced life, not just order, not just calm, but joy, hope, kindness, and love. And all of it began with the courage of one human to care, and one princess to open her heart. Tom looked at Myra and whispered, "I never imagined that my ordinary life could change a world." Myra smiled, leaning slightly closer. "And I never imagined that one human could awaken the heart of Luria. Together, we have discovered something greater than either of us could have imagined." The twin moons shone over the glowing city, and for the first time, Luria seemed to breathe like a living being. And in that quiet, shining night, Tom and Myra understood that their journey had only just begun. The ordinary human and the alien princess had awakened a world.